about the wife of Bath's fourth husband. Now, as you know that in the previous section, wife of Bath had started to describe the fourth husband after her first three, which she described together. The fourth husband was different. He was a philanderer, he was a womanizer, and he kept a mistress. And she had just started to describe him when she had a digression. That was the last lecture about the digression where she became melancholy and she showed her vulnerable side, that her youth has passed and now she actually realizes that she is past her prime, and about her graceful acceptance of this old age. So we see wife of Bath a little differently in the previous section just before this. Now in this section, wife of Bath resumes again after that short digression of that melancholy and the vulnerability, and she goes on with that description of the fourth husband which she had started. And she also regains herself, and after being vulnerable and melancholic, she also regains herself, regains her sassy self that she always is. So that's how this section is. It's a description of the fourth husband. Now we already know that the fourth husband had kept a mistress, and he also went out with other women. So that's how this section begins. I say that in my heart I'd great despite, when he of any other had delight. Now the fourth husband kept a mistress, and that made wife of Bath really furious and really jealous when she imagined her husband with another woman. And this is very important, and this is kind of completes a whole cycle, because this jealousy, that jealousy which comes from love, is something that she pretended to feel when it comes to the first three husbands. Because if you remember the previous videos, she told her husbands that it is out of jealousy that she goes out at night to keep a check on other women with whom the first three husbands were having any affair, and the husbands only let her go because they thought it was just jealousy and that wife of Bath really loved them. So that jealousy which wife of Bath feigned and only pretended to feel in the when it came to the first three marriages, now she was really feeling that in reality. She was truly feeling furious and jealous that her husband was going out with other women. But he quit by God and by Saint George, I made of the same wood a staff most gross, not with my body and in manner foul, but certainly I showed so gay a soul, that in his own thick grease I made him fry, for anger and for utter jealousy. But she felt furious and jealous, as if she was losing her control with this jealousy, but she quickly recovers herself, and now she is back to her best again. Because as you know from the previous section, wife of Bath never loses any battle when it came to relationships and marriage. She will always win. The game doesn't end until she wins. So she says that I made of the same wood a staff most gross. So I made a cross for him with the same gross wood. It means it means that I paid him back with his own coin. That's what she says. And what did she do to actually pay the fourth husband back in his own coin? Not with my body and in manner foul. She didn't sleep around with other men like the fourth husband did with other women. I showed so gay a soul that in his own thick grease I made him fry. So wife of Bath, what he did to actually incur some jealousy in her husband as well, like that she was feeling, she went on and flirted with other men, which made her husband, the fourth husband, very angry and jealous. So that's how she paid the fourth husband back with his own coin. By God on earth I was his purgatory, for which I hope his soul lives now in glory. For God knows many a time he sat and sung, when the shoe bitterly his foot had wrung. There was no one save God and he that knew how in so many ways I twist the screw. So, purgatory, she refers to the purgatory. Purgatory is, according to Christianity, is a place or a state which comes after death, and where the dead men and women they wait to be absolved from their earthly sins. And in this purgatory, after they are resolved from all their sins that they have committed in life, they are sent to heaven. After that, they can go to heaven. So this was purgatory, and wife of Bath says that I was his purgatory, and for which I hope his soul lives now in glory. So wife of Bath, she made the lives of her husband so miserable and made her husband suffer so much on earth that he almost went to heaven directly, as if she was his purgatory. The fourth husband's purgatory didn't need to come after death, but it came while he was married to wife of Bath, because she made his life hell, and she almost was the purgatory in marriage. And now the fourth husband is dead, and now he is in his heaven. And he says that God knows many a time I twist the screw, and only he, the fourth husband, and God knows that how much I tormented and tortured him. So that's how she made his purgatory. He died when I came from Jerusalem, and lies entombed beneath the great rude beam, although his tomb is not so glorious as was the sepulchre of Darius, the which Apelles wrought full cleverly. 'Twas waste to bury him expensively. So this fourth husband, which wife of Bath is describing, he died shortly after wife of Bath returned from Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is a holy city where people go for pilgrimage. Like this, we learn that we understand that this pilgrimage to Canterbury, which is now happening, that is why it is named to Canterbury Tales. In Canterbury, where these pilgrims are visiting this shrine of Saint Thomas Becket, this is not wife of Bath's first pilgrimage, and she has previously actually made a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, which is the holy city for the Christians, and that too possibly alone. And this also I've discussed in one of the previous videos, that it was not expected of a woman to travel alone in medieval times, but wife of Bath did. And this is not the first time. This pilgrimage to Canterbury is not her first time. She also previously made a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And the fourth husband lies entombed beneath the great rude beam. He is now buried in a nearby church, but his tomb is not so glorious. It's not fancy or expensive like that of sepulchre of Darius, not like the great kings or emperors. He lies beneath a humble tomb, and sepulchre of Darius it means the tomb of Darius the Great, who was a Persian king, and the sepulchre of Darius is now in Iran. So wife of Bath refers to these great tombs of great men, and she says that the fourth husband's tomb was nothing so glorious or expensive. It's nothing fancy. It's just a local church. And 'twas waste to bury him expensively. And this comes from a kind of grudge or disgust. She says that expensive burial for the fourth husband would be such a waste on that man, for that man, because it kind of feels that wife of Bath still holds a certain kind of grudge against the fourth husband, because he kept a mistress and he slept with other women, and that kind of hurt wife of Bath. It made her jealous, so she still holds a bit of grudge, as it seems, against this fourth husband. Let him fare well. God give his soul good rest. He is now in his grave and in his chest. But although she holds some grudge, maybe that's why she says that it's a waste to spend anything on the tomb of the fourth husband, the burial of the fourth husband. But now she realizes that he is just dead, so he's not coming back, he's gone for good. So she just says that may God give his soul some rest. She accepts that he won't coming back, so it's no use talking negatively in a bad way for the fourth husband because he's now gone. So that this section actually ends the matter with wife of Bath and the fourth husband, and from the next one we actually go into the study of wife of Bath's fifth husband. So that's it. This was this section. Thanks.